Hey everybody, this is Reapy Ron, and today we're going to be taking a look at another tier list in Killing Floor 2. This time we're going to be ranking all of the bosses in Killing Floor 2. I'll be splitting this up into two parts, first playing multiplayer, and second playing solo, because certain bosses become easier or more difficult depending on which you're playing. So we're just going to go through each of these. The lower that they score, if they score a C or a D, that means they're an easier boss. If they score an A or an S, that means they're a harder boss. So being lower on this list might be a good thing depending on your own skill level. Or maybe you want to fight the higher bosses. Alright, let's talk about Hans first. Now, Hans can be pretty difficult for new players. They don't necessarily understand what the heck he's doing. And he can even be tricky for more experienced players too, because certain maps really favor just his style of attacking you and your team. Especially if he gets you against any sort of wall or in a choke point, because his bombs can sometimes be random. Most of the time he announces what he's going to do, sometimes cryptically though. And he does have the shield. Now, he gets the shield every third of his health, I believe, so it can trigger 3 times. And he can stab somebody with his hands. Once the shield triggers, once he drops that health, he kind of goes into a berserk state, charges after whoever is the nearest person. There is some counters to this though. You can, if you're playing on a real high difficulty, or if you're playing at a very high end of endless where his shield just gets completely ridiculous, sometimes it's better just to let him stab you. And if you're playing medic, or if you're playing survivalist with medic grenades, that's not a big issue, because you can toss those at your feet. When he stabs you, you will regen all the health back that you lost. So you'll pretty much just be letting him get some of his health back, but taking away that giant shield, so it'll help you out more. The second thing that you can do is any weapon that physically moves you away from him can give you enough room to where he cannot get to you. This includes the double barrel, the kaboom stick, and the doom stick. If you jump into the air and fire these, assuming you're firing all the barrels, both the barrels, whatever it might be, you can fling yourself further away than he can actually grab you. And it will reset him to where he'll likely run off in a frenzy and then circle back around, because I guess he's still technically in the animation or something. So those are, some more, I guess, advanced tips for fighting Hans. Basic tips are, whenever he's throwing grenades, just try to stay on the outskirts of the grenades, because if it's very apparent if they just hit the ground and stay there, that means they're frag grenades and they can kill you very quickly. If they land and they have some smoke coming off them, they're smoke grenades, they're completely harmless. And if they have the green gas coming off them, they're gas grenades. Those ones aren't too bad to tank through either, especially if you're playing like medic who has resistance towards it. That's kind of just the basic strategy of Hans. Just keep moving back, try to knock his shield down once he's on the ground, abuse the heck out of him when he's on the ground. Firebug can also hurt him quite a bit, because Molotovs do extra damage to him. He does not like fire at all. I think the flamethrower does too. It's just he usually tries to get out of the way of that. So there is some strategies that you can use to beat up Hans. As an overall boss, he can still be pretty difficult though. On higher difficulties, I think I'm going to put Hans into A tier. Hans is probably one of the more difficult bosses in this game. Alright, up next we got Patriarch. And Patriarch plays in a very strange style as well. Patriarch's got his minigun, or his rocket launcher that he can use. He's also got his tentacle arm. He's got the big boot that he throws forward at you. And he has his heals. So once you knock the Patriarch down solo, he'll go off and heal. He can do this, I believe, 3 or 4 times. I always forget which. It always seems like 4 when he does it, but sometimes it's 0, because you can kill him when he does that. He can also cloak too, I should mention that. So Commando's actually pretty useful fighting him, because you can actually see him well before he actually gets into any sort of dangerous range of your team. His scariest move is his rocket launcher. That can one-shot anybody, with the exception of Demo, because Demo has their passive armor, so Demo will survive it once, but they'll be at 5 health. Everybody else can die if they get directly hit by all 3 rockets. Now that's a problem. Whenever you hear him going to use the rocket, you should be trying to break line of sight and just get behind something safe. His minigun is pretty scary if it's at close range out in the open where there's nothing to break line of sight as well. It's pretty hard to heal through it, at least on higher difficulties. But if you are so close to him, he'll likely not try to use the minigun. He'll probably try to either kick you or punch you or maybe use the tentacle, because sometimes he uses that at strange distances, which isn't as bad. At least if he kicks you, you can usually run. And especially if you have a melee weapon, you can block that and not take too much damage. Patriarch can either be one of the hardest or one of the easiest bosses, depending on what your team is doing. If your team is just concerned with doing enough damage to him, he can be pretty strong then, because you might be running your team out of ammo, where he just gets the heals. It might be the smartest thing to do, just to, quickly burst him down so he leaves and then everybody gets healed up, and then just keep doing that until you inevitably win. Or you could just completely whittle him down to where he's going to run away and then quickly burst him and kill him. So Patriarch on multiplayer, I'd probably put him somewhere in C tier. I mean, his rocket launcher alone makes him stay out of D tier, I would say, because there is still that threat that he could insta-kill anybody. But with everybody focus firing him, you can kill him so quickly that it barely feels like a boss round. Especially if you guys are, really good, you really fought through, 10 waves all the way up to him, and then you get him and then you just destroy him in like 2 seconds and that's it. All right, then we got the King Fleshpound. Now the King Fleshpound in multiplayer can actually be really difficult because he can spawn a whole bunch of quarter pounds, and if him and the quarter pounds, or just multiple quarter pounds, or I guess just himself, push you into a corner, that could just be not necessarily instant death, but guaranteed death. The best thing you can do in that situation is try to jump out of it, but that only works every once in a while when you get caught on certain things. Sometimes they'll just push you into a corner and you can't do anything about it, and you just have to accept your fate. With, maybe the one exception being like Medic, who could potentially throw a bunch of medic grenades at their feet and just out heal it until he gets bored and tries to focus somebody else. So all of the King Fleshpound's attacks are pretty standard, or pretty easy to understand. He's got the big overhand hit that does a lot of damage. He has the front kick. He has his weird spinny moves. All of like the basic Fleshpound type of animations. But he's also got his chest laser and he's got his shield. His chest laser can be dodged if you either get behind an object, some sort of solid object. You can then dodge it because he'll just hit the wall, or you can duck underneath it. Ducking underneath it works sometimes because it depends on what elevation he's on. If he's on a high elevation looking down at you, you might not be able to duck it. Same with if you're on a slightly higher elevation than him, he might still be able to hit you. So it really depends on the environment. But all of his attacks besides his laser are physical attacks and can be blocked and parried. So having a melee weapon really does counter him to a big extent. Also, just not being the one who's attacking him. So if you do a bunch of damage to him and then he really starts focusing you, try pulling out your knife, block the hits. Just don't bother attacking him. Just sit there and try to heal up and move away. And he will get bored with you and focus whoever else is doing damage to him. That's one of the easiest ways to deal with him, is just keep switching off targets as to who he's fighting. Or really try to get him to focus like the Berserker, because the Berserker can really block for you, or like Survivalists can too. Medic sort of can as well. So with that in mind, he's still kind of strong. I'd probably put him above Patriarch because there is that real threat that he can just push you into a wall, beat you to death real fast, or have all the little quarter pounds push you into a wall and beat you to death. So I'm going to put him into B tier. If you're well aware of what his weaknesses are, though, he's usually not that bad to fight. Also, stay away from his ground pound. I forgot about that too, because that's just an AoE hit. So that's even worse if he pushes you into a corner and starts doing that, because it will shred you in a few seconds, because there's nothing you can do. You can't block it. You can't parry it. You just kind of have to, sit there through it. All right, then we have the Abomination. The Abomination is considered by many to be the easiest boss in the game. And I would probably agree with that, besides maybe the Patriarch with multiplayer, because you can wipe him out very quickly. The Abomination is essentially a big damage sponge. Himself, it really isn't that much of a threat because he doesn't move particularly fast until he's doing his charging move, which is pretty obvious. And he puts his face right out, so you can hit him in the head pretty easily. I think he's got probably the largest head out of everybody. So you can shoot him in the face pretty easily. He's got his armor on. His armor is extremely resistant to explosives, and you have to break all of his armor with explosive, or all of his armor to actually really hurt him with explosives. So he does counter demo to a certain extent. His main attack is to get close and then suck you in and hit you, which can do a lot of damage. It does generally more than what it seems, though, because of his spawns. He spawns the little flubbers. The flubbers run out and blow up and can deal damage over time to you, can deal immediate damage to you. These deal poison damage to you, so if you're playing Medic, you almost take no damage from him, and Medic, it's really hard to die from him just because you can out-sustain all the damage he does, and all his little flubbers do. You can kill the flubbers. This is actually really good for like Sharpshooter because you can trigger Z time even easier by killing them, and with certain classes like Demo, for example, if you have a Destroyer of Worlds with high rate of fire weapon with a high magazine like the Seal Squeal or the Seeker 6, you can rip through his armor actually really fast. I don't know if I'd put him D tier because since they have reworked him, he has gotten better. So I think I'd put him C tier below Patriarch because if he does kill you, it's going to be a slow, inevitable death. Where there's just not a whole lot you can do, or where you may have misplayed earlier and now you're getting punished for it. Whereas Patriarch, he might just insta-kill you just because you got unlucky in that one instance. So, like, I feel like the RNG is a little bit higher with Patriarch, whereas the RNG with Abomination is pretty much non-existent. I mean, maybe where the flubbers show up, because sometimes they run randomly around the map, but even so. Alright, and then we have the Matriarch. And the Matriarch is considered pretty much the hardest boss in multiplayer by everybody, and I would agree with that, because whenever you damage her so much, she starts spawning the EDRs. So she doesn't spawn regular Zeds like most of the other bosses do. I mean, King Fleshpound spawns the quarter pounds, or Fleshpounds. Hans just spawns an array of enemies, same with Patriarch, and so does Abomination to some extent. But she summons the EDRs, and EDRs are some of the strongest units in the game, and some of the most annoying, because you have the rocket ones, which can just disrupt what you're doing. They can push you into areas where you don't want to be, and deal decent damage to you. The laser ones generally just deal damage, and they're the least concerning. And then the tether ones, or the trappers, that hold you in place, which can definitely get you killed. That is probably the most annoying part about her. Her other attacks are pretty annoying too. Her electricity can bounce between allies, so it makes you want to split up, which could even be worse because you might be singled out. Her plasma blast, her plasma laser, can deal a ton of damage over time very quickly, and you can only get out of the way of it by breaking line of sight or just tanking through it, and most classes really can't tank through it very easily. They usually have to break line of sight. The only exceptions are like maybe Berserker and probably Medic, because Medic can survive just about anything. So, hopefully you're playing Medic when she targets you, or hopefully whoever on the team is playing Medic or Berserker when they target you, or you have a wall to get behind immediately. Her scream isn't so bad because she announces it, and it does do a lot of damage, but it doesn't really have that long of a range to it, so you can usually get out of the way of it. Sometimes she can kind of do it in weird spots where it's still technically hitting you where it shouldn't be, but So yeah, the Matriarch, she also does have a cloaking, but whenever she uses her cloaking, it's pretty much just to charge you. And then it's just to do melee attacks, and that's actually probably her easier phase to fight, because then you can at least block and parry those. And it's not hard for, the tank like a Berserker to just get up there and block it. So there is some counter play to her. But for the most part, I would put her into S tier. She is probably the hardest boss in multiplayer. She is just kind of unpleasant sometimes. Alright, so this is where I would rank all of the Killing Floor 2 bosses in multiplayer, and the reasons why, as well as some tips for them. Now I will reset, and we will do this. I don't know why I even bothered doing that. I just have to change these colors then. Alright, so Hans in solo usually isn't too bad. So long as you mind his explosions, he's gonna always be coming at you from, the same direction. You're always gonna see him, and he's always gonna be targeting you. Certain classes don't do well against Hans, and then also, depending on which class you are, you might just have to let him stab you with his needles, drain your health, and get his health back, and then kind of back off. Certain classes you don't have to worry about that with, like Sharpshooter, where you can just deal so much damage that he's gonna get knocked out of his shield immediately. Or like Gunslinger, but Gunslinger's great against every boss. So, I'd probably put Hans in solo. There is still the chance he can blow you up. And when he goes enraged at the end, he's always going to be targeting you, and he can outrun you with most classes. So I think I'm still going to put him into A tier, because there is that panicked part at the end where he just kind of goes crazy and berserk on you, and that's kind of scary. Patriarch. Patriarch can be a real pain in solo, because with a lot of classes you just can't deal enough damage to him to kill him. So you have to deal enough damage to him so that he can go and heal and do it again and do it again and do it again. And that can be rather annoying. There is still the unlucky chance that he just insta-kills you with a rocket launcher or with a minigun, because he's always going to be targeting you. So I think Patriarch in solo is actually higher than he is in multiplayer, and I'm probably going to put him into probably A tier. Like, just that unluckiness that you might get into a bad area where he chooses to use the rocket launcher, or where he just insta kills you with the rocket launcher is pretty annoying. The rest of his attacks aren't bad though, and I think it's just those two things that put him into A tier. He's below Hans. Hans is much more consistently scary than he is, but sometimes he can be. Well, maybe I'd probably actually put him into B tier now that I think about it, because there is plenty of times where you just completely destroy him too, where everything just kind of goes your way and he just decides not to use anything, or when he does, you're a mile away and he's trying to hit you with a minigun and you're just standing there because one bullet might hit you. All right, King Fleshpound. I think he's easier solo than he is in multiplayer. I really think so, because so long as you pull out your knife or whatever your melee weapon is, depending on your class, you can pretty much counter him, and he can't be summoning tons of quarter pounds at a time. He can only summon one at a time. The worst it could be is 3. Assuming this isn't endless, where he can summon multiple flesh pounds on really high waves. So he's probably C tier. He's still not that bad to fight solo. Abomination. Abomination is probably also still into C tier, because certain classes don't do well against him. Like I've said, Demo can struggle with him depending on your weapons. And he can slowly kill you, but for the most part, you can kill him before he can kill you with just about any class. And he's one of the few bosses that, almost all these other bosses try to get out of the way of you. If you're playing Firebug, they specifically try to get out of your fire. He'll just run right into it for you, which is great. So yeah, probably into C tier. And then Matriarch. Matriarch is still pretty hard in solo. She can't summon as many EDRs, but she still summons 5 to 6 of them. At least on Hell on Earth she does. And that's still really annoying, because you can still get killed by them pretty easily. I don't think she's quite as hard as she is in in multiplayer, but I'm still probably going to put her into S tier. So the list kind of changes from solo and multiplayer, but just a little bit. Mostly just Hans and the Patriarch and King Fleshpound. I would say switch places because of their mechanics, where Patriarch can still be a threat, can still kill you instantly. The King Fleshpound, so long as you're able to block or parry his hits, which you can do with anybody because you have a knife, he will usually give you enough time to get away to where you can heal, you can kind of, I guess, regroup and then engage him again. So this is where I'd put all of them for solo. Just switch these two if you are thinking about multiplayer. And yeah, tell me what your thoughts are on the Killing Floor 2 bosses. And tell me what your favorite boss is. Not necessarily your the hardest boss or the easiest boss, but your favorite boss. Tell me what that is down in the comments below. I'd love to hear that. So be sure that you're subscribed. That way you get to see any of the other tier lists that I put out. As well as any other Killing Floor content or any other content that I put out on the channel. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching it. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to all of you guys next time. Until then, stay cool, and bye!